welcome you all to the annual awards ceremony of the Ladies Study Group Charitable Trust. A very special welcome to you, Mr. Sanjiv Mehta, CEO and Managing Director of Hindustan Unilever Limited, for so kindly agreeing to grace the occasion and as chief guest and present the award. Thank you so much for being here. We are truly grateful. Now about the award scheme, it was initiated in 1975. It recognizes the outstanding selfless dedication of individuals and charitable institutions and NGOs working towards community development or care of the underprivileged. Nominations are requested, and a panel of jurors comprising eminent citizens of the city select the awardees. It was decided that this year, the Charitable Trust Award will be presented to Kolkata Shashtu Sankalp for their very commendable commitment and unparalleled devotion towards care of marginalized renal patients. The awardee is presented with a certificate, citation, and a cash award of rupees 2 lakhs. May I request Mitali Chatterjee to please read the citation. Thank you.
Kolkata Shastro Sankalpa was founded by concerned citizens and some like-minded friends on 8 August 2009. Their objective was to provide access to low-cost health care to chronic kidney failure patients from the socio-economically marginalized section of our society. The biggest challenge for a patient of chronic kidney disease is that it has a multi-layered impact on their life. The lifelong treatment being prohibitively expensive, most patients end up compromising the required optimum dialysis levels and other medical care, thereby bringing down the quality of life as well as affecting their lifespan. They also often get sucked into a vicious cycle of debt and misery. Moved by their plight, Kolkata Shastro Sankalpa has endeavored to provide economically marginalized patients access to dialysis and other related medical support at nominal costs. They maintain a no-frills infrastructure, cutting out all non-essential costs in their sincere effort in this effort to provide the low-cost healthcare. Over the years, this organization has succeeded in bringing their dialysis charges from an initial cost of rupees 600 per session to rupees 50 only. Since March 2023, they have been providing dialysis free of charge. The expense incurred by Kolkata Shastro Sankalpa in providing free treatment to their dire patients is met by donations from patrons who so benevolently support the cause. We are extremely pleased to present the Ladies Study Group Charitable Trust Award 2020-22 in well-merited recognition of this organization's very commendable service to the community. The award will be received by representatives from Kolkata Shastro Sankalpa. May I request their representatives to join us on stage, please? May I request Mr. Sanjiv Mehta to please present the award.
Thank you so much.
God bless you. Thank you so much. And that's the...
Congratulations, Kolkata Shastu Sankalpo. Thank you, Mr. Mehta. I now go on to announce our second award, Shanti Devi Khaitan Award. The Shanti Devi Khaitan Award was instituted in the year 2017 to financially support the education of underprivileged girls who show keen interest and commitment towards continuing their studies. Under this scheme, this year, we are supporting 2 girl students to continue their training at the Woodlands College of Nursing through required funding from the Lady Study Group Charitable Trust. I will take this opportunity to share with you that in the almost 60 years of our existence, Lady Study Group has stood strongly by society. We have made the best efforts to react promptly in emergency situations and provide timely help to people in distress through our donations. We feel both honored and humbled to take this opportunity to share with you that in the year 2022-23, the Lady Study Group Charitable Trust has disbursed approximately rupees 20 lakh towards funding of nursing and other vocational training, teacher salaries, children's education, school renovation, purchase of medical equipment, and similar purposes to Disha Foundation, MCK's Food for the Hungry Foundation, Responsible Charity, Saroj Gupta Center, Cancer Center and Research Institute, Shuktara, South Kolkata Hamari Muskan, and St. Paul's Cathedral. Thank you, friends, for being here with us on this very special day in the Lady Study Group calendar.
Now it's time for what promises to be an enthralling conversation with the king of FMCG, Mr. Sanjiv Mehta. He has truly represented India's burgeoning retail industry for over 3 decades. His unique perspective on leadership and belief in performance management has made HUL a crown jewel. Overcoming plethora of changes, Sanjiv ji, you've had many signature victories. We know your heart beats for an emerging India, and we are eagerly looking forward to hearing all about it from you and much more in your fireside chat with Shweta Punj. Shweta Punj is an award-winning journalist and is currently leading policy coverage of moneycontrol.com. She's a young global leader of the World Economic Forum and a winner of the International Ladli Award for her story on trafficking of children. I now invite Shweta Punj on stage. Over to you, Shweta. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sucheta ji. It's such a pleasure to be here amidst all the wonderful women that I have had an opportunity to interact with. And of course, a rare privilege and an honor to be speaking with Mr. Mehta today, who is an exceptional leader, a phenomenal leader. I often, I have been following Mr. Mehta's journey. And if there's one thing that stands out, besides him building HUL from what it was to what it is today, it is that he has been a keen participant in the India growth story. Probably born and raised at a time when India was a much poorer country, to now, to building a company, to building a conglomerate that has contributed to India's growth. I am personally, I'm very curious to learn from him today about his observations on how he sees India, what is he on us as consumers, and of course, his take on leadership. Mr. Mehta, a privilege to be talking to you. Really looking forward to this. So, 30 years at HUL, building HUL, a crown jewel, as Sucheta ji described. I want you to go back to your early years while you were growing up in Kanpur. Today, when you look back, and you are standing at a crossroad today, I want you to go back to your journey as a young, ambitious boy who was growing up in a very different India. What do you see, and did you always have this vision for yourself?
First, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Absolute pleasure to be here with all of you all. And thank you, Sucheta ji, for inviting me. And look forward to having a conversation with you. You know, I'll just step back a bit and talk about my parents first, because they've had a great influence. My parents came from undivided Punjab. And my mum was from Gujranwala, my dad was from Lahore. And my mother's family, they, sensing that India might go down the partition route, had, I think, in a bit far-sighted manner, moved their business establishment to Kanpur, much ahead of partition. But my father's family, they lost everything in the partition. And my father had stayed back in what is now Pakistan for about 6-8 months after the partition to ensure that the Hindu families are sent back to this part of India. And then he came to India, they resettled themselves, and my father worked for most of his life in Reserve Bank, nearly his entire life. So I was born in Kanpur, but I grew up in Mumbai.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was greatly influenced by them. So hard work, integrity, love for the nation. These are some of the values I imbibed from my parents. And I certainly owe a lot to them. And we grew up in India where resources were very scarce. We often forget the journey that India has traversed. But to give you all a perspective, in 1947, when India gained independence, our coffers were empty. We were a very poor nation. The GDP of the country in 1947 at today's prices, not the 1947 prices, was less than the market capitalization of Hindustan Unilever.
Wow.
So you can just imagine how small a country we were and how bereft of resources we were as a country. The first two industrial revolutions had passed by us because we were a colony and we could never get benefit of whether the steam engine or the internal combustion engines. And those were the days when everything was in short supply. I remember in Mumbai, kabhi ghar mein kheer banani hoti thi, so we had to stand in queue to get that additional bottle of milk. Yeah, sugar was rationed. Everything was rationed. But that was the time, what it did to us, it gave to us that our ambitions have to be greater than resources. That, I believe, was ingrained in us when we were very young. Not to be constrained by resources. And when you have ambition greater than resources in any field, be it business, be it government, be it if you're a sports person, that brings out a very different, your inner strength, your innate strength to cope with the challenges that you might confront. Yeah, so I still tell the youngsters, always believe in this, A greater than R. Ambition should be greater than the resources you possess. like most Indians my age, I wanted to become a cricketer. And I changed schools so that I could play for the best school for cricket in Mumbai,
That's sounding like Sachin Tendulkar's story.
with a twist. The twist is Sachin Tendulkar, at a very young age, had realized that he's going to play cricket for India. Yeah, he was very clear about that. There's no second option. And for me, because I went and joined such a great school for cricket, I very soon realized I don't have the talent to make it big. And I still carry the passion for the game, but we are now avid watchers of the game. But in our school, we did an aptitude test. And the aptitude test came out that I would be very good with numbers and finance. And that just reinforced a belief. I was very good in math. My dad was very good in math. So at that age itself, because my dad was in Reserve Bank, the best time during the day used to be the evening dinner, which was compulsory for all of us to have dinner together. And our dad used to regale us with the stories of economy, banking, finance, international trade. And that kind of germinated in me the seed to become a chartered accountant. So even before I'd finished the school, I was very clear I want to become a chartered accountant. And that's what I pursued. And that's what I did. I did very well, because I was amongst the toppers in CA exam. And that unfolded in, for me, a plethora of opportunities. And that's how my journey started.
Wonderful. I love the whole formula. A needs to be greater than R. And I think that's something that cannot be reinforced enough for generations. When you from whatever I've gathered, you've always pursued excellence, whether it's as a business leader with HUL or as a chartered accountant. How would you define success, and what would you say are the true attributes of a successful professional? You chased excellence, and you've built something that's phenomenal. How would you define the attributes of success?
I come from a school of thought that if there is anything worth doing, then it is worth doing well. Otherwise, don't do it. Yeah, don't go with a half-hearted attempt at it. And so I generally don't test the water with the toes. I do a full body immersion. Whatever I pick up. Yeah, whether it's business or whether different initiatives or some of the societal problems that we are trying to solve, we do it with head and heart. And success has many facets. But I think success, first important bit is, it's not a destination, it's a journey. Because your goalpost should keep changing. Yeah, it is not that you have arrived and you have delivered, so that's it. No. If you have reached something, that's just a milestone into something more bigger and much greater. The other thing I would also say is that success is not the opposite of failure. Many times people feel that success is the opposite of failure. No, it is not. In fact, if you don't fail, then you're not stretching yourself. You're playing it safe. And I have a concept of productive failure and unproductive success. Unproductive success is when you don't know why the heck you are succeeding. but you're succeeding. Yeah? And productive failure is when you not only understand why you're failing, but you glean the learnings from the failures to strengthen yourself and do even better. So there are two things I would leave with you when it comes to success. One, success is not the opposite of failure. And second, it's not a destination, but a journey.
So in your 3 decades at Unilever, any moments of productive failure that you'd like to share with us, where you attempted something and it did not quite go that way and you stepped back and reassessed and went back again?
If I were to talk about my failures, we'll be here till sunset. Yeah. I work in a very competitive field, yeah, where we fight for every 5 bips, yeah, or like 1/20th of a percent point market share. That's what we fight for. And Harvard Business School had done one study on innovations in consumer good industry. And their analysis was, this is a global study, that 7 out of 10 innovations don't work. And of the 3 that work, 70% of them have not worked in the first time, so they have tweaked with the mix to make it work. So there have been several. I'll tell you, my first job was with Union Carbide. And that was the time when I was heading corporate finance. And we were looking at acquiring a business. And that time, it used to be, we used to have Board for Industrial and Financial Reconstruction, BIFR. The SIC companies used to go under BIFR. So there was a company called Punjab Anand Batteries, and Union Carbide had a battery division, Everready Batteries, which later on, when Union Carbide exited, the Khaitans bought it from them. And now it's gone to Dabur. And we were trying to acquire this business unit. And we did all the analysis, we did huge amount of research. And we came to what would be the enterprise value of acquiring that business. And my gut feel said that if I make a pitch for that business with that amount, I won't get it. The math said that's the right amount to be quoted for that business. Yeah. And that was too early in my life. I was a bit conservative. I was not aggressive enough. And we made that bid not based on my intuition, but based on what the numbers came out. And we didn't get that bid. And it still haunts me that my first big M&A deal, I left it on the table for someone else to get. It's another story that the company who acquired it messed it up and then they again sold it. But that's another story. But, even today, HUL is, many people said that we have become a tech company which also sells consumer goods. So tech has become very deep in our company, in every facet of the value chain. But technology is not a substitute for human touch. So high tech has to go with high touch. Yeah, data technology has to go with human ingenuity. Both have to go together with human intuition. And intuition comes with knowledge and experience. And they have to complement each other. Yeah. But over the years, talking about failures, we've had several failures. I'll give you one very interesting story. When I joined Unilever, I joined in the international cadre. And my first job was in Arabia, where the business had come onshore. Yeah, and my good friends from Cincinnati which is P&G. They had come to Arabia 3 decades before Unilever did. They came with the oil boom. And we were entering in the early 90s. And those were the days we didn't call it a startup, but that's what it was. Setting up new factories, entering into new categories, getting into new countries, new distribution arrangement, the entire gamut of how you start up a business. And we wanted to take on our arch rivals in the laundry category, fabric cleaning category. And we said we have to disrupt them. So to disrupt them, you have to come with a proposition which is very different from what the market leader had. So the company decided that instead of a conventional detergent powder, we'll go with a compact detergent powder, concentrated detergent powder. And we studied it. The concentrated powders had done well in Japan. And we said, let's launch that. But we kept the project very hush-hush. We first launched the conventional powder, Omo, so that competitors don't get aware of what our real plans were. And then we had researched it to death, like we do normally in consumer goods. And then we launched the Power Scoop, which is the concentrated powder. And we took it to the market. Great formulation, great clean, great packaging, great communication, but it bombed. And it bombed miserably. Now, one thing we didn't pick up, that in Japan, the houses are very small. Yeah? They're small houses. They want everything which is compact. Whereas in Gulf, they love everything big. वहाँ पे छोटी गाड़ियाँ तो कभी चलेंगी नहीं. Yeah? For them, everything has to be twice the normal size, whether the houses or the cars or anything. So for them, they couldn't relate to this concentrated powder. Those days, we were not so environment conscious. Now, concentrated powders are also very environment friendly because you don't have much inert material. The packaging is much smaller. The transport required is much lower. But that bombed completely. So the important lessons is that changing human behavior is not so easy. You may bring in any element of science into it, any element of research into it, but unless you have your fingers on the pulse of human behavior, you would never be able to succeed. So I have scores of stories where we have not succeeded, but I have more stories on where we have succeeded.
You spoke about changing human behavior and getting the pulse of the consumer. So I think, and I speak for everybody here, you probably understand the Indian consumer better than Indian consumers understand themselves. What are the key traits that you have observed about an Indian consumer? And do you see the Indian consumer evolving?
I think definitely. Yeah, as the society prospers, as people get more disposable income, you do see a shift in the behavior. Yeah, I think first, very importantly, our consumers have become much more discerning. There's no question about that. And they want to know not just the functional attributes of a brand, but they also want to know what does a brand stand for. And increasingly, the urban consumers are also very conscious about what does the company behind the brand stand for. Yeah, especially when you look at our educated people, they would want to. So it's not just a brand reputation, but a company reputation, which is extremely important. I don't think my generation was as conscious about the impact on the society and the environment as the current generation is. So if you were to look at Gen Z or you were to look at even millennials, they are acutely conscious that we have to leave this planet much better than what we have inherited the planet as. So when you talk about being environment friendly, it resonates with them. Yeah. The other important behavior, which is again a very secular trend, is the concept of natural. Now, natural has its many manifestations. It could be no chemical, it could be no nasties, it could be herbal, it could be Ayurvedic. But going back to your roots, that's also something which is, we see a secular trend across the country. The other important bit is a search for authenticity. Yeah. While you will find the new generation living only through the electronic gadgets, at the same time, they are very, very keen to know about ancient India, they want to learn about the Vedas much more than my generation did. So this again stems from that search for authenticity. Who really are we? Yeah. And the other very important bit which we are seeing is breaking the stereotype. You know, if you just look at the Supreme Court hearing which is on the same-sex marriage, and if you were to talk to the new generation, they have such a profound view of what things should be. Yeah, and our generation, we never fought for abolition of Section 3, the penal code relating to homosexuality. But this generation is going to be very different. Yeah, and for them, the stereotypical thinking, stereotypical image is certainly not going to be the way of life. So unstereotype is definitely going to gain prominence in India in a much bigger way. But there are also many things amongst Indians which is not changing, which is a search for value. Yeah. Indians instinctively are much more value conscious than perhaps their Western counterparts. Again, this could be coming from that a few generations have lived a life of scarcity. So even families, households, individuals who have a lot of money, they still seek value. Yeah, they are still very happy getting deals. And they might not. And this, this is a very strange behavior. On one hand, you may buy an Hermes bag without negotiating because you can't negotiate. On the other hand, you would look at deals to get by when you're buying a Lux soap. Yeah, and this plays seamlessly across Indians. So this is also a very inherent behavior which hasn't changed.
So I want to ask you, how did you keep in touch with your consumer? Considering consumer behavior keeps changing, is there a tip there for...
No, I'll tell you something. First is no shortcut. We do huge amount of research. Yeah, we research things to death. I've got a consumer and market insights function in the company where there are over 100 people. And the whole job is to glean insights, get insights. But there's no substitute for us going to trade and consumer homes. I still visit consumer homes on a regular basis. I don't go as an HUL CEO. I go incognito as someone who is doing research. I go and spend time with people at the bottom of pyramid, at a middle class, to understand. I go to with their permission, I go to their kitchen, I go to their bathroom. I see what brands they are using. I see how they wash their clothes, how they wash their dishes. Because without that, you will never get deep insights. Let me give you an example. A few years back, my team came with a proposal that we want to buy a brand called Indu Lekha. Have you all heard of Indu Lekha? Abhi aap logon ne suna. And let me give you one more advice. Any of you who is fearing hair fall, please start using Indu Lekha. It is magical.
Have you used it?
अभी बताता हूँ पहले story. So when my team brought me this case that we need to acquire Indu Lekha, it was a very small brand sold only in south of India. And I'd not even heard of that brand. So I told my team, guys, before I sign any check for acquiring this brand, I want to go and meet the consumers. So I went to Chennai and spent 3 full days. The first day I met consumers who were regular users of Indu Lekha. And all of you would be knowing in south of India, one of the very clear sign of beauty is beautiful tresses, beautiful hair, long, straight hair. And I went to the existing users of Indu Lekha and they loved the brand. So I came out feeling reasonably satisfied that this seems to be a good brand. The next day, I went to about 10 households to people who have never used the brand. And I went and asked them, have you heard about this brand? Most of them had heard about the brand. But they said it is very expensive brand, we can't afford it. Can you make it more accessible? So I said, not bad. At least the share of mind is greater than the real size of the brand in the marketplace. And that's a good sign for a brand. The third was an acid test. People who had used the brand but had dropped out of it. Yeah, that to me was... So I went to again for about 9-10 households. And 80% of the people said, we have stopped using the brand because it has served our needs. Baal girne band ho gaye. Then I came out and told my team, okay, now tell me how much check have I to sign. Yeah? So there is no substitute. I'll give you a very interesting incident. Last October, I was going to meet Mr. Modi. We had done the work on what should be India's strategy for the next 25 years. And we were at the PMO, and together with me was a McKinsey partner. And we were waiting in the ante room. We were about 10 minutes early. So he went to the washroom. Washroom se aaya, so my first question to him was, unke bathroom mein soap kaun sa tha? And this guy started laughing. Bolta, here, my heartbeat is going faster कि मैं उनसे क्या बात करूँगा या वो क्या question पूछेंगे, and you are worried about उनके bathroom में क्या soap था. But this is something which comes very...
So did you get the answer?
It wasn't my brand. So, but this is something which comes very naturally to me. Yeah, and I love interacting with my consumers. I love going to the trade. Because I feel that with all the data I get, I should never miss out on the feel of a consumer. And you know, when you go and meet a consumer, not many consumers can articulate their unmet needs. It's not very easy for a consumer to say, what is their unmet need? But you only by questioning and unpeeling the onion would you get a sense of what perhaps are they wanting to say.
So, you know, I have to ask you, 3 decades building a company, a global brand, working in different countries, working in different geographies, how does one keep reinventing themselves and the work that they do? How do you constantly find purpose? Because like what you said, you go and meet consumers, which is news to all of us really, because I did not expect you to be knocking on people's houses and checking their bathrooms. And, but you did it. And so how did you keep yourself motivated? And I think this is very significant because, I'm asking you this question at a time when a lot of people are facing burnout. They talk about just getting bored with something and moving on to the next. And this is something which a lot of younger professionals are experiencing.
Yeah. So let me first talk about purpose. Yeah. The two biggest days in our lives are first the day when we were born, and the second when we realized why were we born. Yeah. And that's where purpose comes in. I'll give you a couple of stories to bring home the point of purpose. When John Kennedy once visited NASA, he met a janitor. And he asked the janitor, "What do you do here?" The janitor said, "I am helping send a man to the moon." Yeah, that's what a janitor said. Fast forward to India. Yeah, 2020, around May of 2020, thick of COVID, national lockdown, most of us ensconced in our homes. There was no picture of vaccination. People didn't know what had hit people and whether people would survive or not survive. Is it going to be like the Black Plague? And because our company was making essentials, we kept running our factories, we kept distributing products. And instead of physically going to the factories, I was virtually visiting them. Yeah. And I was visiting them for many reasons. One, to understand what the problems was. Second is to encourage them, give them a pep talk, etc. So around May, I was visiting one of my soap factories. And the way we do it is with cameras and all, so the live feed comes, I converse with them, with the workers, with the factory people, etc. And I was speaking to a man standing on a soap manufacturing line. And I asked him, कि आप रोज आते हो फैक्ट्री में? तो उसने बोला, जी हाँ, save and accept the weekly off, I come to the factory every day. तो मैंने बोला, आपकी फैमिली को डर नहीं लगता? आप घर छोड़ के फैक्ट्री में आ रहे हो? बोलता है कि हाँ सर, डर तो लगता है उन्हें. तो मैंने बोला, आप क्यों आए हो फैक्ट्री में? आपकी फैमिली को डर लगता है, आपको डर लगता है. तो he picked up a bar of soap from the line. और मुझे दिखाता है और बोलता है, remember, a blue collar worker, huh? Not an MBA from IIM or an engineer from IIT. He's a blue collar worker. Picked up the bar of soap and said, sir, इससे हमारा देश बच पाएगा. Just think of it. Yeah, this is not a person who is highly educated, who is talking about it. Here is a person, he leaves his home every day in the midst of a lockdown because he feels he has got a bigger purpose in life. And that's to help save the nation. I felt so humble in front of that person. मैं तो अपने स्टडी से बात कर रहा था और वो फैक्ट्री से बात कर रहा था कि इससे देश को बचाएंगे. That's purpose in life, guys. is profit is never a big motivator. Hindustan Unilever's market cap now is over nearly 6 lakh crores. We are the 5th most valuable company in the country. So, huge market cap, of course, makes us happy, excites, because that's the way investors look at us, that's the way market looks at us. But I don't get up in the morning excited about my market cap. I get up in the morning excited about how we can make people feel good, look good, and get more out of life through our brands. How can we make heroes out of ordinary mortals? That's what purpose is about. So profits have to be through purpose and not profits on its own. I tell the youngsters also, don't be obsessed with valuation. जो startup वाले जिनको मैं mentor करता हूँ, don't be obsessed with valuation. Your obsession should be with creating value. Once you create value, then valuations do happen. Coming to the second part of your question, reinventing yourself. A good education doesn't teach you everything. A good education only teaches you what to learn and how to learn. Many times this top engineers, top IIM graduates come to a company and they think they are cat's whisker. Very smart and all. And they soon realize कि हमारी company में सभी cat's whisker हैं. Yeah, all are super smart guys, but most of the guys are there have more experience than the young grads. And they soon realize how much more they need to learn. So the important thing is, you have to be a learner all your life. You have to be a student all your life. And one of the things we look at as a trait in a manager or a leader is curiosity. You need to have that hunger to learn new things. And if you don't learn, you will get fossilized. Yeah, there'll be 10 other people waiting to get your job. And the only way to reinvent yourself is to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And if you can reinvent yourself, then you can also reinvent the company you work for.
And how do you stay grounded in the process? You have been at the top of your game for so many decades. Yet when one speaks to you, or when we see you interacting with the audience here or otherwise also, you come across as somebody who's very grounded. I want to ask you, what's the secret to that?
First is, we should all be conscious about that if we succeed in life, it's not just because of ourselves. Yeah? If you just look at yourself and your house staff, very often the house staff would be having more native intelligence than you do. But it's only by the quirk of fate that they were born in the families where they were born and we were born in the families we were born in. Yeah? There are many variables in life which are not under your control. And if you succeed, one of the things you should be very conscious of, that God has been kind to you. Yeah. And if you have that deep realization, then you will be humble enough, you will have the humility to remain grounded all your life.
Do you have a spiritual practice, Mr. Mehta?
I don't believe in rituals, but I have a deep faith in the Almighty. Yeah? And this deep faith also stems from that there is someone much powerful than us, which has a much bigger say in the universe than we do. And I do pray. I do pray twice a day, morning and evening, before going to bed. And I also come from a school of thought that there are different routes to reach your God. Yeah? God may be one, but there are different ways of reaching the God. And I believe that your relationship with your God is your personal relationship. And how you deal with that relationship is best to be left to you.
I want to talk to you about your leadership principles. How do you integrate ambition with compassion? You work in a very competitive space. It is the most competitive industry in the world. How do you manage it all in terms of keeping your team motivated, yet not toxic, leading with ambition, yet compassion?
Yeah. First, most important bit is we should have a realization that every human being, there's a God in him or her. Yeah. And never treat a person in a manner which will affect a person's dignity. A person may be your chauffeur, a person may be working for you, maybe your house staff. But when they go home, they may be going back home to their little home, but they are kings and queens of their families. Yeah? Never ever hurt their dignity, howsoever low they may be. And just because you are at a higher level, you have to be even extra careful that you never hurt a person's dignity. Yeah. The second, there are two things I spoke about. Ambition, I spoke about humility. And one of the most powerful thing is what is I call the word ambition. If you have humility and if you have ambition, it becomes a very potent force. Very potent force. The third is, in today's world, I believe that human beings are genetically codified for being adaptable. And that is the reason the human race has kept evolving. While we are adaptable, we also expect human beings to be very agile, to adapt with speed. But together with agility has to come compassion. And compassion is not about sympathy or pity. No. Compassion is about looking at all the stakeholders. Compassion is about putting yourself in the shoes of others. Compassion is able to understand what others' plight would be with the actions that you take. So, I'm a great believer of capitalism. Or let me tell you this way. When we were growing up in socialist India. Right? And socialist India means all of us would have read Karl Marx. But when I reached my 30s and I worked for a corporation and Western multinationals, I soon realized that if in your 20s you're not a socialist, you don't have a heart. And by 30s, if you don't turn a capitalist, you don't have a head. Because capitalism is the best way to allocate scarce resources. And you have seen how India's growth journey has changed since 1991 after we embarked on opening up the economy and going on the true path of capitalism. Yeah. So certainly capitalism is important, but I'm a big believer of compassionate capitalism. Not unbridled capitalism, but compassionate capitalism.
So how do you implement that? How do you implement compassionate capitalism? If you could share some of your management mantras with us.
Now, let me give you a few examples. When I was chairman of Unilever Bangladesh nearly 20 years back, and this was a business which was in deep trouble. We had turned it around. We had become highly profitable. And I thought, we have to do something for the business, something for the society through the business. And once I was traveling around the Chars. You know what the Chars are? Those are the sandy islands in Bay of Bengal. And very often they get washed in the Delta region. And very often they get washed away by the mighty rivers, the Brahmaputras and the Ganges, etc. And there, economic development had not taken place. And we were going there, we were meeting the consumers, and many people had not seen a doctor in their life. So we came back, we kept talking about it, and what we did is, we purchased an old oil tanker and converted it into a Lifebuoy Friendship Hospital, into a hospital ship. And this hospital ship would go from island to island, taking healthcare to people who had never seen a doctor in their life. And in the last 20 years, it has reached out to about 1 million people. Yeah. Now, there was no need for the business to do it. But realizing that if we are in the health and well-being space, and if we see a big problem, and we are not part of the solution, then we are not doing justice to our stakeholders. Come to India. We have the mighty rivers flowing from the Himalayas, but we have not managed our water resources well. Yeah. All of you may not realize that if we don't manage our water resources well, in the next 10, 15 years, the water supply will be half the demand. Right? Now, realizing this, one is, we could have talked about the problem, bitched about the problem, and said, Sarkar kuch nahi kar rahi hai. Yeah, that's one way of looking at things. The other is, how can we be part of the solution? So we said, we're a company which is meant to employ the best possible graduates in the country. We have great managerial resources. We solve deep business problems. Why can't we help solve the water problem as well? So we started working on, in villages, on the demand and supply side of water. And for the last 10 years, we've been working on it. And we have reached thousands of villages. And we have created a cumulative water potential of 2.6 trillion liters, which is enough to meet the drinking water needs of the entire population for 2 years. Yeah. It's still a drop in the ocean. Yeah. Now, it's still a drop in the ocean because 80% of the water is still consumed by agriculture. So we have a huge job to be done. But again, and this came in much before the CSR rules frame. Now, whether CSR is there or not doesn't matter. We'll keep doing this kind of activities because we believe it's right for the nation. Now, we have a very simple but a very profound belief that what is good for the nation is good for Hindustan Unilever. So we align ourselves with the national agenda. Now, talking about water, yes, it's good for the society, but we must also understand that it is very good for us. It is in our enlightened self-interest. जब आप उठते हो, आप ब्रश करते हो, hopefully with Pepsodent or Close-Up. पानी चाहिए होता है. फिर आपको चाय या कॉफ़ी पीनी होती है. So it could be Taj Mahal or Brook Bond or Lipton or Brew. पानी चाहिए होता है. Then you want to take a shower. You first want to wash your hair. It would be Dove or Tresemme or Sunsilk. पानी चाहिए होता है. Then you want to have a shower, whether it is Dove or Lux or Hammam or Lifebuoy. Pani chahiye hota hai. Then you come out. You want to wear nice, clean, washed clothes. Surf Excel or Ren. Pani chahiye hota hai. Then you want to have food. Your dishes have to be clean. Vim se, bar or liquid, pani chahiye hota hai. So throughout the day, you engage with my brands. And we require water, right? अगर पानी नहीं रहेगा, हमारा धंधा भी नहीं रहेगा. So it is in our enlightened self-interest. That's where capitalism comes in. But solving the bigger good for the society, that's looking at the stakeholders, and that's where compassion comes in.
So, you spoke about how India was a socialist country, and then in the 90s with liberalization, there has been, of course, the economy has opened up. In the last decade, we've seen, again, a phenomenal change. Yet, the narrative in India sometimes, actually very often, veers towards big business versus small business. The whole Sood Boot Ki Sarkar, all of those jibes. How much of a disservice does it do to entrepreneurship in the country and to the business environment in the country?
Yeah. The important bit, I believe, is this is not about either or. This is about and. Yeah. As a country, we need big businesses. And we need micro and small enterprises. It is not either or. I'll tell you, a big business is very good in adopting new technologies. A big business is very important to compete at a global scale. A big business is very important to invest in capital in large numbers, create employment opportunities. Yeah. So big business is very important. And today's India's problem is we need many more big companies.
Absolutely.
We need many more big banks. We have got just one state bank, which from a loan and deposit perspective comes in the top banks. We need at least a dozen top banks to meet the requirements of our credit for the next 25 years. Yeah. So big is not a problem. We need big, we need to celebrate big. But at the same time, we must remember that the wheels of the economy are also run by micro and small enterprises. When we had the global financial crisis in 2008, by 2013, by that time, the US economy had recovered and the employment levels were again going back to the pre-crisis level. 60% of the new jobs in the US had been created by small and medium enterprise. Yeah? So you require those enterprises. अगर आप हमारा trade देखें, जो ग्रोसरी शॉप्स हैं, मॉम एंड पॉप स्टोर्स हैं, या बनिए की दुकान जो हम बोलते हैं, they are about close to 11 million stores in the country. 11 million stores go by a concept that two people work in that store, the owner and one helper. Yeah, and go by a normal threshold of 5% in a household. So you're talking about that nearly 10 people's lives are dependent on an average on each store. And if there are 11 million stores, you're talking of over 100 million people. 100 million are bigger than many countries. So 100 million's livelihood is dependent on the success of these stores. So it is the job of the society to ensure that the small businesses thrive. But at the same time, we need the convenience, we need the assortment of a big store, of a marketplace. Yeah, we can't remain away from technology. So we need both the big and the small. And as a country, we have to accept that it will be the private sector which will be the prime mover of the economy going into the future. You know, as Indians, हमारी थोड़ी psychology ऐसी है कि we don't applaud success. I'll give you a classical example. Mothers बात कर रही हैं and they are talking about a kid who has done very well in school. तो another mother says, oh क्या हो गया वो first आया तो इतनी मेहनत करता. Yeah, so you still don't want to applaud success, but you want to attribute some reason not to applaud success. I think we have to get away from it. Yeah, we have to applaud business people because they are creators of wealth, they are creators of jobs in the country. And just like, you know, one of the great things, you may not agree with many things about US, but one thing you have to do is that society applaud successful people. And that's what we need to do. I think somewhere deep behind, even in the bureaucracy, it is entrenched. अगर कोई successful है, मतलब उसने कोई बदमाशी की होगी. No. In India, you can practice the highest standard of ethics and still be successful. Yeah, yes, if someone is not following the law, we should come hard on them. And there should be certainly zero tolerance for it. But we should applaud the wealth creators.
Okay, I'm coming to a close, and I just have 2 more questions for you. Any leaders who inspire you? Business, spiritual, could be in any realm, any country.
There are several people who have inspired me. Yeah. Like I said, I still look back. My parents are not alive, but they still inspire me. Yeah, their thoughts, their thinking, the way they live their life, they still inspire me. And I've had the fortune of working with some amazing people, absolutely amazing people. And I had a wonderful chairman when I was in Arabia, an American guy. I learned a lot from him. I've learned through many leaders. My boss was Paul Pullman for a few years. I think he's a great thinker. He's far ahead of his time, so I've learned. But you know, I also learned from people who work for me. I also learn from people who are very junior to me. I'm a great believer in technology, and over the years I've learned a lot about technology and all. But I learned a lot about technology from the technology natives. Yeah? We are technology immigrants, right? जब हम बड़े हो रहे थे तब कोई स्मार्टफोन्स थोड़ी थे, तब लैपटॉप्स थोड़ी थे, computers भी नहीं थे. But we have learned on the way. So I've learned from even people who are my juniors, and I keep doing it every day. So I keep getting inspired by them.
Any specific quality or trait that inspires you? That you see in a junior that inspires you?
Yeah, you know, the traits of, first is that deep desire of excellence always inspires me. And when you look at a person who has this deep desire of excellence, he comes from, or they come from a school of thought that even excellence can be improved upon. And so, yeah, the other is, I always get inspired by people who always keep others before self. Yeah. I have a lot of disdain for people who keep talking about I. Yeah, those are the guys who never inspire me. But people who put the company before self, who put the nation before self, yeah, who excel in whatever they might be doing, who have dignity and pride in whatever they might be doing. Sometimes I look at a house staff and I get inspired by how they are looking for excellence in the work that they do. They go beyond their brief and clean a lab which they are not asked to do, but they feel that it needs to be cleaned. So those are excellence attributes which inspire me. And I don't always need to get inspired by great leaders like the Mahatma Gandhis, the Martin Luther Kings, etc. Though I love reading the autobiography of most of these people. And there are several leaders who have inspired me, political leaders. Lee Kuan Yew, what he did to a small city-state is absolutely amazing. And what also happens is that human beings have follies, right? No one is perfect. Now, if you look at Sheikh Mohammed of Dubai, there are many of his follies. The way he's treated his family, perhaps his daughters. But what he has done to Dubai is absolutely amazing. What a vision, what an execution. It's of a different order altogether. Sheikh Mohammed, I'll give you some example. When I used to run North Africa, Middle East, every Ramzan, he used to host a iftar party. And I had the honor of attending at least 5 of his iftar parties in his palace. And every year, he would come to each one of us and ask the same question. What can I do to help you do your business better? Just imagine the ruler of the country coming and asking you, and his people would follow it up within the next 1 week if you have raised an issue. मेरे पास कोई मंत्री नहीं आया ये पूछने इंडिया में. What can we do to make your business better?
It's not happening in India?
I wish they would come and reach out to us rather than we reaching out to them. India is changing, yes, but we have still not reached that level. Yeah, so it really inspires me. When I go to the trade, I try to do a similar thing by asking the trader, what do you want us to do to help you do your business better?
Okay, my final question, and then I'll open it to the audience. Actually, I had 2 questions, but I'll just ask you one. What next for you, Mr. Mehta? What can we expect going forward?
There is so much more to be done in life. Yeah, like when I announced my inning at Unilever coming to an end, first, many people asked me why. And my answer to them was that my answer lies in your question. Yeah, Vijay Merchant, cricket fans would remember him. He had a wonderful saying. He said, leave when people ask why and not why not. Yeah? And then there was another person who asked me, are you hanging your boots? I said, no, I'm not hanging my boots. I'm only changing my socks. So I have no intention of stop working or just playing golf. No, there's so much more to be done. Right now, there are many offers which are coming my way. I'm still in the process of evaluating them. I've just got 2 big boards. One is Air India. Air India ko badalna hai in the interest of the nation. And the other is a French global company called Danone. Yeah. And then I said I have to decide the fulcrum of my activity. Once I decide the fulcrum of my activity, then I'll decide whether I have a capacity to do more. And then I'll pick up other activities. But I am very excited about the next phase of my life. क्योंकि बहुत कुछ करना है अभी.
We are excited for you.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to open the floor now for questions. I'd appreciate you to take a mic, if there is one available, and introduce yourself before you ask a question. Okay, you're right in the front. Maybe you can start. For the people at the back, I think we will need a mic.
Don't worry. If they don't have enough mic, I can go down. That would be much more convenient, I guess.
Mr. Mehta, your talk was hugely inspirational. I am sure I'm speaking for everyone here.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you mentioned 2008, 2013, what happened? I mean, began with 2008. The world saw bad days, recession. We are kind of facing that now, right? With the huge economic situations in Europe and the US. How do you think it's going to impact us, Indians? And especially when India has now become the most populous country in the world. Probably that's good for our economy in this situation, but I would like to
No, that's, I
get
think,
your
a
views.
fabulous question. Yeah, there are many similarities, but also many differences. Yeah. There was a time when India was part of the famous BRIC countries, right? Then when we went into the global financial crisis, we also became part of the infamous fragile 5 countries. And if we stand now, we are on a very different wicket. First, we are the most populous, but thankfully, we are also the fastest growing economy in the world today. Yeah. Second, our banking system is no longer as vulnerable as before. A few years back, you would recall that we had a twin balance sheet problem. Our corporates were over-leveraged and our banks were under-capitalized. Now the word twin balance sheet problem is no longer in our lexicon because corporations have very clearly are no longer as leveraged as they were, and the banks have recapitalized them in a very big way, and the NPAs have come down significantly. The third important bit is we must understand is during the last few years, some very significant reforms have taken place in the country. They weren't the big bang reforms, but silently and solidly, big reforms have taken place. If I look at the area of taxation, first was the introduction of GST. Now, GST is resulting in many things. First is it's resulting in the formalization of the economy. One of the reasons why government's tax collection has been so buoyant is the formalization of the economy. The second is GST has helped us reduce the logistics costs significantly. Our logistics cost as a nation were 400, 500 bips as a percentage of GDP higher than our peer group. Now it's coming down. If I look at my own business, we have rejigged our fulfillment centers because of GSTs. We have rejigged our supply chain and factory network, and the cost of logistics has come down by nearly 1/3. The other is a corporate tax. Corporate tax, by bringing it down to 25%, now it is comparable to the peer group. And that is also one of the reasons why FDI is coming into India. Last year, despite all the problems, we had an FDI of nearly 90 billion coming into India.
Wow.
Yeah, and our reserves are close to $600 billion. And that is the reason why rupee has not depreciated as much as many other currencies have. And the other very important bit is the construction of infrastructure in the country. Yeah. Just like what happened in the US in between 1880 and 1930 and after the World War. Now that's what I was talking about, how infrastructure is growing in the country. And infrastructure has a multiplier effect on the economy. I know in our business, when a metal road gets constructed in a village, our consumption in that village goes up by 1.5, 1.66 within 2 years. So this is going to make a big difference to the country. And last but not the least is technology. Data, Industry 4.0, all this is playing to our strength. And India's philosophy of using data as a national asset, as opposed to the walled gardens of the West, is going to be the big differentiator. Today, there are developed countries who are seeking know-how about UPI from our country. Our digital payments are more than the entire continent of America. So we have a lot going for us. And that's some of the reasons why I feel very buoyant about India. And I certainly believe this decade and beyond is going to be India's decade.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mehta, you talked about success. Sorry, I'll stand up. You talked about success being not a destination, but a journey. And you also talked about shifting goalposts. So it would be nice if you could tell us, in relation to an HUL product, how the goalposts kept shifting. And also, you've talked about research being done to death. But how much do you actually go by research when you're launching or relaunching a product? You talked about a failure in the Middle East. I remember a brand called Treetop. All research said it would be a huge success and it was a wonderful product, but failed miserably. So,
No, thank you for that. And, I can quote many more examples of failures, yeah? But talking about the goalpost. First, if I were to go back to the purpose of HUL, is to make sustainable living commonplace. Yeah? We don't measure ourselves from a size of a business or the shareholder wealth we create. We come from a perspective that if you look after your consumers well, you look after your customers well, you look after your employees well, you look after the planet and the society, then the shareholder wealth does get created. Yeah, that's the perspective we bring in. And we're always looking at ways and means of how we could enrich the lives of consumers. That doesn't mean we are not business focused. We are very performance focused. But our purpose is bigger than the business metric. Yeah? Now, if we were to look at the last 10 years during the time I've been leading HUL, when I came in, our business was about 25,000 crores. Yeah. Now it would be close to 60,000 crores. Our operating margins have gone up by 860 bips. Our EBITDA now is, which was earlier about 15%, is now at 23.5 levels. Our market cap, which was about 1 lakh crore, is now about 6 lakh crores. So by any dimension, we have been a very highly successful business. Yeah. But look at the sheer potential of India. The per capita consumption of all FMCG products is about $45 per capita. And forget the developed nation. If you look at Indonesia is 2x India. China is 3x India. Philippines is 4x India. Just look at the runway to grow. So if I were to keep my goal as 50,000 crores, I would be doing disservice to my business and to the people of the country. So you have to keep moving your goalpost. Yeah. My successor should now look at, when do we look at 1 lakh crores? And how quickly? 1 lakh crores so ho hi jayega, but how quickly? So that's what I meant by changing goalpost. And it's not a destination. Yeah. Talking about research, not doing research is not an option. That's not an option. Because there are so many examples I can give you where the insights have come from research. But at the same time, good research does not mean it will guarantee success. There are so many variables at play that many times research is not able to capture those variables. Because research also is done within a certain context. And it's not done in an unlimited fashion. We have now got an AI hub, artificial intelligence hub, where we are able to map trends happening in different parts of the world and also with a good deal of precision tell you that when that trend will come into India. Whether it is from the US or whether it is Korean beauty or whether it is from Japan, we're able to tell you that. We can also do now through 3D printing prototypes without having to take long lead times. Earlier we used to do all factory trials, now we do computer simulation. So the lead times have come down dramatically. Yeah, so what this does is, this improves your chance of success. But does it give you 100% guarantee that you will succeed? The answer is no. Human behavior, variables at play, because let's look at it like this. When I say you do the research in a certain context, you don't take into account what the macroeconomic forces will be when you launch the product. You don't take into account what your competitors will do when you launch the product. These are just two variables at play, which you can't fathom. So I would say, use research, use human intuition, and give it your best shot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mehta.
Mr. Mehta,
after you, please.
On a lighter vein, with all this economics going around, when you talk of goalposts, which is your most important goalpost for a challenge or a takeaway that you would kind of cherish and share with us so that we can also learn?
When you're talking about it for the nation or for?
For yourself.
For myself.
In the context of the nation or the company.
Okay.
Or your success, your journey as...
Yeah. I would say that the goalpost that I would be now looking forward to, we have two wonderful daughters. Yeah, we have twin daughters. We are blessed with two wonderful daughters, Naina and Roshni, highly educated. And now they've set up their own startup. And what I would like to see them is succeed as compassionate capitalists. Yeah, I would get huge amount of joy to seeing my kids become real worthy citizens of the world and make a difference to the context. Yeah, that would give me much more joy than again, more than creating another multi-billion-dollar company.
Mr. Mehta, that's me. And it's a simple question. First of all, I think you mentioned that Indians have a bit of a difficulty in applauding, but I think I speak for everyone here when I say that we'll have no problem raising a huge round of applause for such a stellar session.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. You're very kind.
Not at all. My question is, you took us back to the days of partition and so on, when India's GDP was smaller than today's HUL's market cap. From there to now, the robust economy that we are, the aggressive player that we are, half of the world chumming up to us, and whatnot. My question is, how do you think that the Indian society should conduct its prosperity?
That's a wonderful question.
Thank you.
First I would again come down to that we are today a $3.5 trillion economy. And if we keep growing at about 7.7% for the next 25 years, then a per capita income, which is 160,000 rupees, could become $1 million, 6 times. And we could come from an average GDP of being in a developing country to a middle income country on that lens. But averaging has a deep flaw. And many times I say averaging is a sin, because you have to de-average things. If we become a middle income country on an average, but if we are not able to lift the bottom of pyramid, then we have not done justice to ourselves. So the first burning thing, desire should be there in our society, is inclusive growth. You can have a very high GDP if only the top companies and the top industrialists keep growing the billions. But that's not going to lift and make a real difference to India. A real difference to India will be when health, education, access to sanitation, when access to drinking water, when we can do away with malnutrition. A fact many of you may not know, that 1/3 of children in India are either stunted, wasted, or they are underweight to age. We can't have a country which is a beacon of success if we can't have inclusive growth. So that's point number one. The second is, our per capita greenhouse gas emissions are significantly lower than the developed countries. But on a total basis, we would be the 3rd most emitter of greenhouse gas. Now, one way of arguing is we need our development, and development would need more greenhouse gas emissions. So don't hold us to absolute standards, but hold us to per capita levels. I think that would be wrong, because we owe it to our planet, to our Mother Earth, to protect it and nurture it. So we have to decouple our growth from our environment footprints. So that's the second thing I would say. And the third thing I would say is social cohesion. We are a very diverse country from ethnicity. We are a very heterogeneous country. We are not a homogeneous country, right? And we would want huge amount of social cohesion. We would want a country where people can practice their religion. We celebrate Diwali, we celebrate Christmas, we celebrate Eid, we celebrate Mahavir Jayanti, we celebrate Guru Nanak's birthday with the same fervor, and all of us join to celebrate. That's the kind of country we need. So that would be my vision for the new India.
Okay, final question.
Good afternoon, everyone.
You know, there is one man over there. Men are feeling really today outnumbered. We should give him a chance as well.
Just one question.
After you.
Yes, sir. Imagine a minister is coming to you. And what questions would you put him?
Who is coming to me?
Minister. You say, na, in India, mein minister nahi aata. Just imagine. I hope our minister is listening. So what question would you put him?
पहले आपको बताना पड़ेगा उनका portfolio क्या है.
वो जो concern आपको दिखता है जिनका.
Sorry, no. You know, I would certainly feel that the government is becoming much more responsive. And one way of looking at the response today is the number of investor summits we are happening all over the country. Every state is today vying to get investments. And they recognize that you have to bring in this element of competitiveness, and you have to be very proactive to investors, and you have to make a pitch to them. Otherwise, why would an industrialist bring the investment to this state and not take it to another state? So that has improved, but it has not improved to the level that I would say one would seek. Yeah, and the chasm, deep chasm between bureaucracy and business has to go away. Yeah, and that mistrust has to go away. We have to treat business as equal partners to India's growth and development. Yeah, that is where the philosophy has to come in. लेकिन जो मंत्री आएगा, depending on the portfolio, मेरे पास बड़े question हैं पूछने के.
Okay, final question to the gentleman. Yes.
Yeah, let's give him a big round of applause. There is a man raising a question today.
I hope I do justice to all the men in the room with this question. A lot of responsibility on me. But Mr. Mehta, as you quoted the numbers, and as we see India traverse the journey from a $3 trillion economy to $5 trillion and
Much
beyond.
more.
Much more.
5 trillion is just a milestone.
Yeah. And then how do you see like rural India changing and the real Bharat changing, and how should FMCG companies and brands pivot to this change and meet the needs and like become more successful organizations along with the nation?
I think we should give him a big round of applause, right? The only man to raise the question. Okay. First is, if you look at rural India, let me give you some numbers today. You know, first is about 60% of Indians still live in rural India. Yeah? So India doesn't stay only in Mumbai, Kolkata, Delhi, Bangalore, but it stays in rural India. The second important bit, again, if I talk about inclusive growth, if we have to give everyone a source of livelihood, then we would need to create about 600 million jobs. And today, the number of jobs in the country, and this 600 million jobs implies 1.3x the number of jobs today. Right? But in this 1.3x, there is another factor, that a large number of people are employed as farm hands in farms. As technology comes in, over the next 25 years, the yield will go up significantly, but the number of people in the farm, working in the farms, will halve. So in effect, we need to create, in the next 25 years, about 250 million more jobs. Yeah? You're talking about a large number, about 10 million jobs. Yeah? Over the, every year kind of jobs. Now, 1 million jobs on an average every month. Now, unless we are able to do that, we will not be able to lift people who are in rural India today with income significantly lower than the urban counterparts. Just to give you another statistic, in rural India, I give you a figure of $45. That's average for India. Rural India is 1/3 of urban India. Yeah, that means the quality of life is still far away from urban India. And urban India, we cannot afford huge amount of migration from rural India to urban India because the cities won't be able to cope with the stress of migration. So हमें rural India को develop करना पड़ेगा. That means more growth in rural areas. That means better yield. A small country like Netherlands is the 3rd largest exporter of agriculture and horticulture products in the world. We could become a granary to the world. Yeah? And that is where we will have to bring about the difference. As far as FMCG is concerned, you know, our today's sales, about 1/3 our sales are in rural India. But it should mimic the population living in rural. I should have 2/3 of my sales in rural India than in urban India. And that is the shift which will happen if more income, more wealth gets created in rural India. Yeah? Thank you. We have a job to be done, but don't be dismayed. Desh badlega.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Ladies Study Group, it gives me immense pleasure to extend a heartfelt thanks to Mr. Mehta for such an inspiring and engaging session. Thank you so much. The more you read, learn, experience, and analyze, the faster you build the speed, agility, and flexibility needed to collaborate and lead in changing times. A quote by Mr. Mehta I couldn't agree more with. I love the term ambition coined by you, meaning if you have the power of ambition and strength of humbleness, there is no stopping. Today, you gave us a beautiful insight about your journey and learning over the years, and we take this opportunity to wish you all the best for your next innings. As I heard you say, you don't hang your boots, but you only change your socks. We are grateful to Ms. Shweta Punj for moderating this lovely chat and making the conversation so informative for everyone. Thank you. Our heartiest congratulations to Calcutta Swasth Sankalp for winning the Ladies Study Group Charitable Trust Award for the year 2022-23. I would now like to invite on stage Mrs. Yashodhara Khaitan, our governing body member, to give a token of her appreciation to Mr. Mehta. Request Ms. Rakhi Sarkar, our governing body member, to give a token of our gratitude to Ms. Shweta Punj. Thank you to all our friends from media for their continuous coverage and support. We appreciate and thank ITC Royal Bengal for their outstanding hospitality. Thank you to all our dear guests and members for being with us today. Please join us for lunch. Have a great day. May I request the governing body members, past presidents, and committee members to please join on stage for a group photograph. Thank you so much.